The time is now 6:30, and I would call the public hearing to order. Purpose of the public hearing is to get public input regarding the use of trust funds for the replacement of a tractor. Anybody here who would like to speak to the public hearing?
Before I do, can we just get some information about the cost and specs and what the problem is?
Yeah, so we're currently using a 2006 Kubota B3030. We chase annual fixes. It's a tractor that's used pretty much 365 days a year. When it goes down, it's never convenient. It's gone down the past 2-3 years. It's been in the shop for months on end, which puts the crew way behind every season during the seasonal change. So we're putting a lot of money into a 2006 at this point in time. We priced out Kubotas. We priced out John Deere's. We have some John Deere Gators that we use. We've had very good success with them. We have some Kubotas we've used. When they're operational, they've been very good. We lean towards John Deere on this round because we do find that no matter what machine we're using on the Kubota end, it takes a significant amount of time to get them fixed when it goes out of our hands, so when it goes to the shop. We priced out at Rosencrantz and Dairy, Nashua Outdoor, and North Country. Rosencrantz came in significantly under the other two, but they also added on a bunch of safety mechanisms, the backup beepers, the light beacons, some safety stuff that brought them equal with everybody else who was just giving us the basic model. With that being said, we chose Rosencrantz for $29,938.62. That's trading in our Kubota as well. So that our problem tractor will not be our problem. It will be off our hands.
Next
question.
Thank you. Obviously, it's a critical piece of equipment, and if the last week is any indication, we're going to need it this winter. My only criticism is this was never on the CIP. So again, as we replace the equipment, I would like maybe to make sure we have that on future CIP standards for it.
So two things, we are working on getting our vehicles and equipment on the CIP plan, as well as our heating units and some of our bigger expenses that aren't on there right now. Number two, the Kubota, as an example, broke down on us twice over the last 2 snowstorms that we've had, causing significant delay, but because we have the best crew, you guys, the public doesn't see it. But the real life example is both storms, it broke down on us 2 different times.
Anyone else like to comment? Okay.
So the John Deere, who's the John Deere dealer on those sites?
North Country.
Okay.
They were a little bit higher.
That's a terrible. Okay.
They are Pembroke, yeah.
I don't think we should ever spend more money, but I certainly am partly supportive of spending money on taxpayers for the batteries and Pembroke when all possible. So
And I would agree.
Anything else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and 6:34. At this point, I'll call the regular school board meeting to order. Just please be advised this meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public. Minutes of previous meeting, November 5th. Pleasure, board.
Sure. Second.
questions, corrections, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
One abstention. Agenda item 3A, public comment. Any members of the public want to give a comment on anything this evening? Okay, we have another opportunity at the end of the agenda. 3B, agenda review. That,
We have two consent items under 3B. One informational item, and we do need to go into non-public session under A and B. No. Mine is, yeah, no, we were.
Okay.
Sorry, yes.
and down to 3C, destination.
Yes. That's you.
You.
We received an email from, or I received an email from our robotics advisor. She wanted to make me aware of several donations that have helped to sustain the program this year. So I will give you the list that she gave me and the amounts. It's a substantial amount in total. Associated Grocers provided $2,500. The Chapman family, which is a family here at school, $2,000. Perishable Management Services, otherwise known as the Shaput family, $500. Ed Furman and Lynn Garofalo, who are the grandparents of one of our students, a combined $700. And there is also another $1,100 in combined business, community, and family donations to bring the grand total to almost $7,000 in donations for robotics this year.
Move to accept. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Well,
Yeah.
is this, these come in unsolicited, or
Thank
is
you.
this part of the solicited, unsolicited?
And then today, I went, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now take action on this one first. Everyone all set? All in favor?
Today, I met with a representative from Aramco Oil in Concord, as is customary every year. Exxon, as part of their Educational Alliance program, donates $500 to a school for the express purposes of math and or science, the progression of those disciplines. So I happily accept it, and we'll divide that up in $250 and $250 for each department to use as they see fit for their curriculum.
To accept. Second. Any other questions? All in favor? And then Paul, on a roll.
That's it, we're good.
Anybody else? Different donations? Okay. And then on to 3D consent agenda, twice.
Few items, they're both, personnel requests, so if we wanna, I'm assuming one will want to have a conversation. You don't want to post on both of them.
Both of them? Okay.
Yeah.
Both of them, non-public, please.
Here.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So we're gonna move to 4A, Hill and Village merger, since we have here that are interested in that specifically, because FY20 budget, we had a long conversation. So, I let you have, okay, that's fine. Okay, you have the floor.
Thank you. Somehow or other, I became chairman of the village school disposition committee, probably because I opened my big mouth.
Democratic election.
It was a democratic election.
No fraud.
That's right.
No handshake.
None at all. We opened our first meeting on October 25th, and we started with a discussion of the charge to the committee. Unfortunately, because of my history, this is not a new discussion to me. This whole thing began with respect to what we were going to do if we built a new middle school. It started with the Space Needs Committee in 1986. which actually predates me being on the school board, so you know how far it goes back. Where we're at right now is that the issues are still the same. Condition of the building and where, and if it fits within the school district's needs. Once we got the Three Rivers School approved in 1991, after 2 tries, the only way it was passed was when we included funds to keep the village school open and operational. At this point in time, as you all well know, by the time we got to our second meeting on November 7th, we had the details of what the engineering study was, and that essentially articulated to the committee that the bill for those that could be identified, a $3.7 million was necessary to renovate, and that didn't include 9 items that they had not assessed. What we really came down to is, in that second meeting, when we did a tour with Josh, and we're very grateful for Josh to take the time to do it, everybody on the committee had a sense of what the scope of the problem was. When we met again, our third meeting, on November 15th, we had a brief review of what we had learned in the first 2 meetings, and we also discussed what some of the options were: to renovate, to demolish, or to sell. And the topic of whether or not the school board can request the funds to renovate the building if the building was not going to be used for a purpose dedicated to the educational school or the administration of the school district. Refresh my memory. That discussion took place years ago as well. As you know, Dan Crean is on our committee, and Dan, as a lawyer, recalls that I don't believe, and you'll have to check with your own attorney, that the school board has the authority to do anything with that building if, in fact, it's not going to be used for school district purposes. And that's something you really do need to check out.
Can I interrupt you just a second?
Sure.
When you say anything, does that mean we can't do any renovations to it, or we can't demolish it, or we can't touch it?
Well, if you're going to renovate it, you have to be spending those funds for the purposes identified as something tangent to the education of children or to other appropriate uses by the school district. Whether it be, let's say you wanted to put, for whatever reason, you wanted to move the SAU down there. That's fine. There had been some discussion along the way of potentially offering it to Pace Charter School, which is a district-sponsored charter school. I am on that board, as is Dave, and I took the opportunity to find out what our status was as an institution. Pace has a signed lease for the facility up off of 106 that does not expire until August of 2023. So absent breaking that lease, even if the school district were to renovate a portion of the building and offer it to Pace for a fee, it is not likely going to be in a position to offer it to us for a fee that is within the scope of what Pace can afford at this stage.
But the board is able to make the decision to demolish it or sell it.
Yes, you can just, it's still your property. But if you're going to renovate it, you're going to be renovating it for a defined purpose that you can articulate to the school district meeting by putting out for bond to do that renovation, or any of those types of things that you want to choose to do. The other issue that came up is essentially whether the board can sell the property, and if so, can it take the proceeds and use it for something within the school district's purview. That's a little more of a gray area. If you were to sell the building and receive the proceeds from that sale, whether or not you could use it would have to be articulated as part of your budget. and would probably, in some way, shape, or form, directly impact what you're spending in that appropriate time frame. So that's a little more of a gray area. You may want to get, again, legal counsel to tell you what you can or cannot do with yourself. It's generally understood, and no one could find any objections, you could sell it to the town for $1 if you wanted to. And then the town can do pretty much whatever it feels is appropriate within its public purpose. That's how you ended up with one of the schools in Concord becoming the recreation department, or a community center, or some of the other things that were articulated in earlier meetings that we had. The important thing is to realize that you can offer to sell it. The school district would have to vote to allow you to sell it, and then subsequent to that, the town would have to elect to buy it. So you could sell it to them for $1, or get authority to sell it to them for $1, and they may not either choose to put it on the warrant to buy it for $1, or the voters could say no, and you're still where you are right now. The difficulty with no decision such as that is that that building is going to be used for cold storage or for whatever it's currently being looked at as for the next school year for the foreseeable future. And that doesn't work for anybody. But that's my opinion, the opinion of most of the committee members, but we are one vote and not by any means the majority of the school district meeting or the town meeting. So you really have to come down to essentially deciding whether you're going to sell it or renovate it or demolish it, just like I said. But if you're going to renovate it, you're going to have to articulate what it is you're going to do for the school district in order to be able to get public support in the school district meeting to do that. Now, we talked about all kinds of options. We talked about not only the building as a whole, we broke it down into its 3 component parts. The 1907 building, the 1951 wing, and the 1957 wing. One that seemed to garner as much interest and favor, if you will, of the committee was to try to sell it piecemeal, meaning probably the 1907 building for residential housing. The 1957 wing, which goes out towards Pine Street, would probably need to be demolished in order to be able to have some parking for that housing. And there's also some property down at the lower end of the 10 acres on the site that might be able to be sold and not impact the use of the field that's off to the side. So you could still have your sledding hill. There was a person or two on the committee who was very supportive of keeping it as a park. So those are the kinds of things that you have to decide. The one area that seemed to garner the most interest for potential public use was the 51 wing, which is where the gym is and those 5 classrooms that are part of it. There is a dearth of public meeting space around the area, not only in Pembroke, but also in Concord and elsewhere. So you might be able to rent out some meeting space there, but the town would have to be doing that. The recreation department is very concerned about if, in fact, the building is shuttered and not put to any use at all, they would lose use of the gymnasium, which would put a crimp in what their plans are for various programs. So those are the kinds of things that have to be discussed. I would check personally, and what the committee has suggested, check with legal counsel to make sure that we're not giving you bad legal advice. And I'm not a lawyer, I don't play one on TV, and God forbid I ever had the law to do. The other thing you need to do is you need to speak with the selectmen directly and see whether they have any interest whatsoever in purchasing it for whatever purpose they may see as appropriate for their use down the road, whether it be a community center. One of the more intriguing suggestions that the committee had was to create a storm shelter. There is no public facility in the village that can be used should there be a wholesale power outage weather-related catastrophe. But all of those would have to be decided by the select. I'll shut up if I can.
Questions or comments?
So, there was, I understood you reviewed the list of options, but there was no consensus at the end of it.
No, we didn't want to proceed if in fact it wasn't the school board or the school district's, decision. If we decide to meet with the selectmen and want one or more of us from the committee to also be present, we'd be more than happy to be there. We have no affiliations either specifically with the school board or with, as citizens we don't, or with the selectmen. So we can be a disinterested third party in the sense that we have the information, we'd be more than happy to share it with them. And then, but ultimately, it's a decision of this board to sell and selectmen to buy, if in fact it's going to go to some other purpose other than school.
I have a question, and it may be totally beyond the scope of the committee. You mentioned selling it in three different lots. Doesn't that require additional approvals to break up?
It would probably, if whoever decides to sell it and to break it up, would have to get a zoning variance or have the planning board involved in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. So
That was pointed out by Bob Bork, who was on the planning board and is also on this committee.
Okay. So, I mean, although it sounds like a viable option, it certainly appears to be an option that would incur additional time as well as additional costs.
If you were to sell it to a third party, you could sell it in total.
Right.
And then it's that
Let
third
somebody
party's
else take care of it.
responsibility
Correct.
to do whatever is necessary to break it up.
I guess the way I understood it was if we were to sell it as three different lots and it's not.
Oh, yeah. But
Initially,
again, it's a question
lots.
of whether or not the school board can do that, or whether the town can do it.
Okay, thank you.
And that question needs to be answered first.
Tom, you know? Go ahead.
Just a couple things. First, because I was a school board rep, I just want to publicly commend the members of the committee for the work they did, and I want to thank Josh again for helping us out with information and a tour of the building. That was very helpful. The thing that I keep coming back to is that before we make a decision as a board, and I'm just throwing this out as a suggestion, not as an emotion or anything at this point, but I think it might do us some good to get an objective real estate person or company in to give us an assessment of what, excuse me, what the building might be worth, the land might be worth, and either or both. So we have some idea what we're talking about in terms of value, and I understand selling it to the town for $1 probably is, maybe it's 50 cents more than it's worth. But I would like to know how appealing that property might be to someone coming in to either do something with the building or get rid of the building and just use the property for some other purpose. I think that's probably something the selectmen might be interested in as well.
So, my comment actually sort of preceded that. It sounds, just to make this very simple for our purposes, sounds like our only option is we're gonna sell it.
Hold on, what?
Well, then we sell it. I mean, then you would presumably still.
You may decide you want to, as a school district, you may decide you want to start a community college.
Right.
You can do that, but you
So,
can't do it otherwise.
But realistically, it sounds like, do we sell it to the selectmen, do we sell it to a private developer? So, I'm just, again, sort of preceding, so your comment perfectly follows that. So if that is really the only realistic viable option, and for us, it certainly makes sense to start getting some information in terms of, is there any interest at all? If we, as a district, we sell it to a private developer, if we cap on the tax rolls and make a few $100,000, that would certainly be a lot better for the taxpayers of Pembroke than to sell it to the town for $1 and keep it off the tax rolls.
But that would mean we'd have to spend some money to get that evaluation done, but that might be money well worth spending.
Well, maybe, no. Maybe it's possible that, I mean, you can have the real estate agent come and just take a look, commercial real estate agent, for no money whatsoever, they're gonna work on, that's something that they're gonna work on the commission. But it sounds like we can't fix it up really in order to sell it, so we're selling it as is. So, I don't know, let's just, my opinion, let's just keep it simple. We're gonna sell it to someone, it seems like it makes sense to see it, right at first refusal, and then see if there's any value.
I would agree with you. I know we probably need to look into town, see if there's any information, see if the town has any interest at all.
We had a brief discussion about that. Kevin,
Yeah, so at the last meeting, it did seem like one of the purposes we wanted to kind of get out of this conversation with you guys is whether or not you want to talk with the selectmen, or whether you'd like us to do it on your behalf. But we felt like the next logical step was talking with the board of selectmen to determine if there was a desire for that property for community use.
Well, respectful, completely disagree. Okay, I make the motion that we have the committee, only because, it's an objective committee, clearly going in, presumably with no agenda, Dan Crane is back on budget committee, I think he's very clearly well respected groups, and will be perceived as having any sort of bias that we can come across as having, and, the same thing, but that's just.
I have no problem with bringing some representatives from the committee, but I think at least one of us should be there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that.
They, I mean, even though
I
it's
don't
on the committee,
have a problem being there.
we strike up a conversation with the
But before doing any possible commercial evaluation on the property, I would hesitate to put it out there as a first refusal thing for $1 to the town. It's like, that's you can make $100 versus $1, it's still $100. And,
it depends what the town's gonna do with it.
but the other part of that is, if we do make proceeds, the question is, can we use the proceeds, how can we use the proceeds? So,
Because if the town's looking to make a community center or a teen center out of it, I think that's got more value than $100 that we get for it on it.
but that's an example, I'm thinking,
I know
a couple
what you're saying.
$100,000 or something.
I know what
like
you're
that,
saying.
at the risk of being too verbose, I put $1 in there because that's a legal minimum.
No,
Yeah.
I know. So,
Josh?
Just to go a little bit more on what Dave's talking about on the appraisal end, we've made some phone calls. We can get a commercial appraisal, we believe, for around $3,000-4,000, just to give you a budgetary number. And if we were gonna get a residential appraisal on that lot, it would be about $1,000. The residential, they would pretty much just go in and think that the place was demolished, and they would start looking at the land on the residential. So, that was a brief conversation.
I would think that having the committee, maybe the select board, and find out if the select board is at all interested, since it is a community. I mean, our task isn't, and I hear this every year at town meeting, that we don't want to be property owners. I don't think that this board wants to be property management also. So if the town has some vision of what they can do with that property for the town, let them have it. And I mean, let
The
them.
property on Union Street, I know is, rubs
Yeah.
some people the wrong way.
Yeah, so I mean,
Okay.
I mean, with the selectmen right now, I think it just needs to be a conversation, not an offer of the building.
Right.
And once you determine whether or not there's a desire, you could still offer the building for sale. And if the selectmen conceivably put an offer in also, lay it against any other potential offers and accept, even if it's for $1, if you feel that what they're gonna do with it once they have it outweighs the monetary value of potentially another offer from the private sector, you still could select it, find out if the town is even interested first, and we're gonna look it up and jump right to unloading the property. I don't think you waste money on demolishing it, I think let somebody buy it.
That's right. Question for Josh. In terms of the commercial assessment, do you think there's anyone out there that would offer an opinion? My concern being, because we have engineering studies that says it needs at the minimum, depending on what you want to use it for in its current state, at least several $1 million, and you can spend $3 or $4 grand on an assessment for something wrong with the for $1. So, do you think any people you talk to would come in, do a 15-minute walkthrough, and you can give us an opinion, yeah, it's worth it to make this formal, or save your money because what else do you say at those projects?
So we posted it to see if anybody in town or in the area would come, and I don't believe we've gotten any hits on that. And we've made a couple off-the-cuff phone calls to some locals as well, who have really steered us to making the call to the commercial appraisal. It's where we're at. We can do some more research with it, but I keep getting led to the commercial appraisal.
Again, which I appreciate, I just don't want to spend $4 grand on something when you can sell for $1.
Jeff Field, been in town a long time. You talked to Keeler, Jeff Field?
We've been,
That's what I do. And I would talk to him, he's been in business for a very long time.
Isn't that a residential area though? I mean, can you just put commercial buildings down there?
No.
Quite a few things.
and they're currently working on the zoning on the location as well, so I don't know the exact zoning, it is for a bunch, but they're currently looking into that as well.
It's zoned
Right,
residential.
that's what I mean, it's zoned
We had
residential
we
right
had a list
now.
of things that could be used for it.
Yeah.
We did get a list, yeah.
Yeah, if I may, the issue is really not one for this board. If you're gonna sell it, particularly to the town, $1 is all you're ever gonna get. I mean, legitimately. If they buy it after a discussion of however long, the duration, then it's up to the town to determine whether it's gonna sell it to a third party or partial, either all or part, and let the $3,000 come out of the town's budget. And I don't have a problem that being on tape. But the issue here is for the school board's decision to sell it for commercial value. The only way you should do that is if you know that you are going to get some benefit to the school district by selling it, and that's the purpose of that second question to the attorney. If you can find a way to get that information reasonably, you probably already have your attorney on a retainer, ask the question. Then you can make a determination which way you want to go.
I would almost think the trustee, the selectmen would see if there's interest there. If there's interest there from my standpoint, they want it for $1 and get
Well,
22 years, let them have it.
Let the committee go, let the committee see, report back what the spend is, and then after that, if it's worth our pursuing, then take it from there.
We good?
At this point, you want to motion to that?
I don't know, we need one. There might be,
Matter of fact, one is probably clear.
I'll get in touch with David.
will you go?
Yeah, I'll get in touch with David and get on the agenda.
Okay.
Maybe
So
soon.
they'll take care of it? Sure. Folks, okay.
So the committee,
Committee will go with Dave. Okay. Good. I mean, they're gonna wanna talk about that for a while too, and they've got some time. We got time. Okay. Good.
Selectmen had a meeting on the 19th last, so in 2 weeks.
Might be next week.
Yeah, next week.
I almost swear it was tonight, because we did that the committee, and I'm almost positive, he said that it was a meeting right before that.
If you want to do it in the short term, your only deadline is publishing your warrant, saying you're going to sell it for $1 or they're going to buy it for $1. Other than that, we've got this time to play.
Okay, great, anything else?
Well, no, and I'm certainly supportive of that. And I hope I'm wrong. My gut, let's see how I turn it, my gut is telling me that, knowing that the town's already sitting on property they don't want. That the thought of them taking on more property that they may not want. We need to ask, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, but I guess I would caution the board to not get too excited, because this might be easy.
In the 25 years that you've known me, have you ever seen me get excited?
Well, no, yes, I have.
The town's also, in recent years, pushed to put more and more on the tax roll. The water bill is an example up on Main Street, they sold that out. 2 years back, it said that was $7 per dollar. So, there is a precedent, sir. Okay, thank you, Clint, appreciate all your work, thank you. Okay.
I'll call David and then I'll get in touch with you and email it to you.
You have my email and my phone number.
I think I still do, yeah, I haven't deleted you yet. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go back to agenda item 3E, FY20 budget. On budget or something else?
Well, no, frankly, on the town budget.
I'm gonna be this much anyway.
Okay, so just so everyone's aware of what we're heading into, the town is putting forth a budget that is essentially flat. It's essentially flat with a 12% increase in health insurance, and the COLA raises. And we had some pretty significant cost savings in a couple of key areas. And we are looking at, COLA raise this year is 2%, so that's important for perspective. And they are looking at possibly changing their insurance to a different plan with a slightly higher deductible. And while, if you're going to need those specific detail, my sense is we're probably going to need close to a 12% increase. So in terms of how we're going to be judged, we always get judged similarly to the town, fair or not. And I just thought it was important that, please correct me if I'm speaking all here too. I think it's important for everyone on this table to understand that sort of the benchmark that we have to do against.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. If I could, I'll review the changes that Amber made, and then we can, kind of people, there's the things that we need to look at, most of it is, technology. But we can go through the changes since the last meeting. The first thing, she highlighted them in yellow, so that would be the easiest way to follow along. As requested, she added the 2 full-time social workers to the budget, so that's salary line changes. On line 113 and 148, they were both the math supplies, so we took out the amount for the math program and lowered those lines substantially to represent the group of constraints. As I just mentioned, starting on line 353, there's 3 sections for computer replacement. That money is in the budget right now. Naturally, you want to look at Josh's numbers again. He gave you the grid for the 4-year replacement, and then he also gave you the infrastructure funds that we haven't done anything with yet. And line 641.
Contract service. That's 457. 456, with 456.
Oh, yep, sorry, I have kind of the left-hand side of the that was lowered substantially as well. So that's a special line, and there's a change in back to 641, you had asked Amber to figure out the percentage of the overall budget that co-curriculars, represent, so she added the notes.
In terms of co-corrects,
want to finish going through, and then we'll come back? Okay.
It's not highlighted, but column, 1175, the maintenance contracts, I did notice a difference in the number between the sheet that, was prepared by Mary and the numbers in the line, so I need to double check that. I think that that's gonna go up about $10,000 for the TA line. I do wanna verify that with Amber today. The other two schools are correct. One that did not get highlighted, 1442. Should have been highlighted because that's the $30,000 of the tractor was. So that's what it is. Next page, there's.
It's a tractor line,
It was line 1442, and it had 30,000 for the tractor, and that's taken out. The next section was health insurance, so much better news, since the original 5% that we had put in. Your green plan, some of your green plans decreased 2.7%, your red other plan decreased 2.7%, and your yellow member plan, decreased 6.7%. So those rates are fantastic. Yeah. And then the percentage in dental changed just a little bit. And then all the other lines, in that next section is the, fringe benefits that change whenever you change salary. The, line 1566, there's several highlights where, at the last meeting, we added a 3% increase pool, discussing the need to make some salary adjustments and then also compensation considerations, so. I'm keeping the vote on that yet. And then at the very end, the food service budget, changed minimally. I think it's just the health insurance stuff that made, but changed the food service program on the fund number. Yeah, because on the food service, it was the health care rate and then the 3%. Moving over to the rest, the only other thing in here is the co-curricular sheet, so they can see what was proposed, you know, for that last time, but here. It shows where things were moving around, color coded. And a couple things were crossed off, were added.
Can you provide us with your, working off some kind of spreadsheet that shows the cost of each one for activity?
I have
Can you
not.
provide that? Can you ask them for that, please?
I believe he said that it didn't really change from year to year, but I just probably might have a copy of that. When I talked to him, that's what he said. Generally, the, supply lines and the apples to be.
Okay. Currently, Fund One budget is up $326,000 or 1.34%. One thing I was talking to Patty earlier, the earlier time, budget's up $326,064, 1.34%. And the one thing I talked to Patty about is your early retirement's not in here yet, so it'll be approximately another $100,000 added to it. On average.
And there's still kind of supporters, something like, kind of like that, still funding.
There is still time.
That's true, that's coming through it quick.
Tom, it's up first, I think.
I didn't hear what Tom said.
Sabbatical?
Oh.
They have until a certain period of time.
It's a request for sabbatical. Yeah, early retirement, we have to allow 3 early retirements under contract. Sabbaticals, we don't have to allow any, that's discretionable. Okay.
And then the only other thing that could change the bottom line, you had talked about whether or not you wanted to pull from, Josh's line out to be funded by, warrant articles. The only thing that I would caution you is to remember, if something is put in a warrant article and voted down, he can't do it. So if he needs to make repairs or have a project, and the voters vote it down, he can't turn for money, he can't do it in the next budget cycle. So he would completely lose the ability to do that. If you put money in one of your trucks that you're gonna use surplus, then you would have that ability. But I know we talked about different things in the town does it, we want to be careful with.
But that's, I mean, something to look into.
Yes or no, right, yeah.
Right, I
Just
mean,
keeping in mind whatever you.
if the boiler at Hill blows up, we're gonna put a boiler at Hill company.
Right.
It's gonna happen, we're gonna have to find it one way or the other. I mean, give another sweat.
You would want, whatever you pull out, you would want to be sure that you didn't have to have it, because you can't.
Discussion on the budget is presented, every time we have at least one question.
My question, just sort of thoughts, that's the approach, and regret that, we all worked with our goal for our last meeting. Sorry. In terms of 3% raise, my personal feeling is that I don't like using that approach to adjust salary and equities. I would highly encourage the board to consider matching the town in terms of over 2% and needing whatever salary adjustments, for each competitor does separately, than just having everyone rank through across the board percent increase, which may end up a similar amount of dollars. I just think it's a fairer system. Everyone put dollars. I mean, I hate to give everyone all our non-service at 3% across the board when we may have positions that are desperate maybe for retention reasons, 10%, but we have other positions that are frankly market competitive. So I just don't think it's necessarily that's the easier way to approach to spend those dollars. I'd rather direct them appropriately and then give them sort of 2%. And then whoever gets adjusted, obviously every adjustment, it wouldn't be 2% above. You know, so everyone would get one adjustment, whether they were 2% or something like this. With up down, like I said.
My fear with mimicking the town percentage increase is that my understanding is the town employees have far superior healthcare plan than our employees do. So if you're going to match them, at least when I was on the budget committee, their healthcare plan was a lot better than what ours is. So, I mean.
They've gone through some changes in recent years, I'm not sure that's still true. It may be, but
I would tend to agree with you, especially with the change.
I don't think that they're on the yellow line. I'm pretty confident they're not.
The other piece with the town, they've all also got a merit component.
We do some, but they're not certain.
No.
The pool, well, when we have Patty with.
Well, yeah, we've done pool.
Merit, well, that's merit.
But I believe the town does, and correct me if I'm wrong, they give you 2% across the board in the COLA, and then there's a merit on top of that.
And then there's a merit on top of that, correct.
I believe that's how they do it.
So that's.
What we're saying here is, we're currently just doing the 3%, and like you said, we do a pool traditionally.
Right.
I hear what you're saying, Tom.
But let's be realistic, I think if we went up and looked at details, my dad goes to the on every percentage we put in the budget, that's just bad.
We made some adjustments, but I would say the majority of the time. When you look at the difference, you know, with, okay, does that person get an extra $200, and it's a pretty small amount. So overpowered.
I'd be more comfortable knowing specifically what their healthcare plans are.
And that's up to the survey.
Yeah, and, I mean, before I would be comfortable changing the 3%, I would like to know.
I know they have substantial this year.
Like I said, 12%, but we're
Looking at isn't something as what our folks already have. And I don't think that 1% is going to cover the cost.
Other thoughts?
I think from our perspective, from the school board perspective, we have a situation where we have to deal with a lot more competitiveness out there for positions, all through the system, than the town does. So I think we have to try to keep our salaries attractive to draw competent people.
I would respectfully disagree. The town did do if you all in the corner where they did an outside party coming in salary review. And all I've heard back from my time years ago, in the last several years, is we are so woefully underpaying specifically for police officers that has created an incredible drain on that particular department and sort of growth. So the town in this budget does have a number of, and that was presented as a budget packet, which is public document this year, a number of great adjustments to positions for the town. But I know for a fact the police department, and I can't speak to the other departments, because frankly, we have all much reviews yet, is struggling, in my opinion, far worse than any of our previous.
I understand that one of them, yes, they have struggled, and then done an awful lot to change that either. But I think we still have to keep up with what's going on outside of our little Pembroke, and what's going on in surrounding areas. If we look at the paper the other day about the Concord contract, what that's going to cost, and what the significant increase in salary is going to be, if that thing gets passed, we're in a big hole compared to not only Concord, but a lot of other towns that we stay with. It just, that's just.
I appreciate that. I can tell you, knowing people involved in Concord politics, I know there are certain individuals on city council and others that are absolutely against having formal discussions, but looking at any available mechanisms to address the Concord board's sort of unfavored decision making. I mean, the board approves the budget.
Little different system.
Yeah. So I guess my point being is Concord has been able to do whatever they want to do for years.
No matter how they get
when
there.
that comes to an end. And I've always been concerned about setting yourself up. We had a year like that last year. I'd rather take a long-term approach that ensures long-term sustainability than sort of set ourselves up for growth that's unsustainable and have to do we had to lay off way too many people in the last few years. That's something I certainly lost. And I was learning from that, and that's not a very self-centered position of getting there again soon.
I don't want to get there, I don't want to get there either, but no matter how they get to their point, we still have to compete with, and not just Concord, some other towns around here.
And that's why.
I know we're not going to get.
That's why I said 2%, but let's adjust those jobs that are, there are jobs that are going to be maybe the same dollar amount, but, you know, let's make it targeted versus just across the board, you know.
Other discussion?
I'm just looking forward right now as an overview. This is a $1.7 million budget increase right now, as it sits here from last year. The 1.3 that was given back in relief, our surplus. So everybody enjoys that right now, correct? So next year, next September, that won't be there. There may be some surplus, but that 1.3 won't be there. We're adding another 326 to it. So in everybody's opinion, you're looking at a $1.7 million, the resident taxpayers, not me,
It's gonna be a $1.7 million impact.
impact, right?
Right.
Compared to where they are right now.
I hear you.
So-
I think we around this table understand anyway that the increase is in 1.7, but the impact is gonna be, we're gonna have a $1.3 million impact anyway.
Anyway, right, and, you know, Tom had brought this up, their budget, the town's budget's relatively flat at this point in time. And I don't wanna let anybody off, and I'd like people to get their, you know, I'd love to give everybody a 3% increase, or maybe approach it like Tom was speaking about here, but in reality, I think we have to, at this point in time, start looking and saying, okay, it's gonna be last year all over again, when those tax bills go out, which is gonna happen, and then the following year after that, what's gonna happen? You know, I'm looking to the future on this. I know we've gotta provide the best we can for students, but
I mean, people have to fully understand that that 1.3 million is not coming back again next year.
yes, they do.
Hopefully, everyone's listening tonight,
Right.
understand, there's a $1.3 million surplus that went back and will not be there next year.
And if you look at, when I look at a $326,000 increase, that's this, right? That's flat, that's pretty much flat. We know it's on an uphill grade, that's pretty flat, but combined with that lack of surplus.
I mentioned it the last time we met, that next year is a contract year.
Yeah.
And, contract years are always difficult. That flat budget, if we decide to go with flat budget this year with a 0% increase, you're gonna see the same thing next year. So you're gonna be looking at 3 years in a row, considering last year what we had to do without providing any increase for, you know, teachers' aides, supplies, copy machines, electricity, natural gas, all of those things have gone up for everybody. You know, people need to understand that, you know, there have been increases, the increases that you're feeling at home, this district is feeling those same increases. We've been suppressing that for a good number of years. I just don't think there's any other place currently to cut without doing some real damage.
I don't disagree. I mean, there was 175 anyway in there for closing down Village and merging into Hill.
And people are gonna pick up on the fact that we should have some savings there.
So, yeah, and essentially, you're only 150 above that number right now for the appropriations, correct?
And then.
Well, there's gonna be savings from the closing of the
Right,
village,
yeah,
so
yeah.
what that savings is, I don't have it right.
Can we go back though to the 1.3? And, 'cause I wanna make sure we understand it, and I wanna make sure we can explain it to others. So if you look at the budget, and you look at the total district appropriations, right, at the very last page, so I see a voted, 18 voted of 26,693, right? 090. Where are you? The very last page, total district appropriations.
Yep.
FY 18 voted.
17, 18.
17, 18 voted. So the first column. 26,693. The FY 17, 18 actual, which is where we had our savings, right?
Right.
Is 25,967.69. So that number, that 1.3 includes revenues, right?
The revenue is not in this number.
So let's make sure we're being clear that it's not a 1.3 million increase to appropriations. There is a revenue component to that. So really, when we look at the FY 17-18 actual, that was, let me do the math for me, but about $700,000 less. And if you look at the FY 20 proposed, it is actually less than the FY 18 actual.
17-18 actual.
So it's not a 1.3 million increase. I understand that there were savings there, but we reset the bottom line. So I don't want people thinking that, you know, we only saved that money for 1 year. We did. We cut a large number of positions that aren't in this budget. Those savings will go on forever. So yes, we will get part of that surplus back every single year as long as we don't restore those positions. I want to be respectful, but I want to make sure people understand that a number of the decisions we make have long-term consequences.
Right.
So in theory, yes, we are going to get a portion of that savings back because of the cuts that we made that are perennial. The annual cuts, absolutely never one time. But sort of, if we think of it from a horticulture standpoint, those perennial cuts will save us, and that's in here.
The budget freeze plus the 1.4 million will cut out this year's.
Right.
Right, so those cuts are in there, so we're, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't wanna be back where we were last year, or frankly, where we were last year was in, for those who have been around a lot longer, didn't come close to where the board was, I don't know how many years ago. Ron would remember when we lost music, art, libraries.
I tried to figure about that.
I mean, the fraction, frankly, the bottom dollar line of that cut was insignificant compared to today's numbers, but the impact at the time probably put this district back at least 10 years, if not closer to 20. I mean, you know, quite frankly, it probably was about a 20-year to catch up to where we were. Because the board wasn't able to do anything for probably the better part of the first 10 years in terms of restoring that.
Right.
And then there was the second 10 years that,
It takes a while to get those programs up and running again.
I remember those years, because I was.
yeah, you were here, and all it takes is one person to stand up. So I made my comment on salaries that wasn't necessarily savings. I understand I wasn't here, I did talk to our superintendent offline, I understand the board had said to put them. Social workers, I'm just telling you right now, I will support, and I always have, representing whoever best for me to sign on the board. Right here and now, personally, I cannot at all be supportive of those positions in this year's budget, and frankly, probably never. I understand the need, I respect that's something to bring in, but again, look at the 10-year expense to that, when we were getting teachers last year, as well as a whole lot of other support staff. I understand there's a net issue there, but again, I think that is, I get concerned that is the type of decisions that may have consequences a few years down the road that will catch up to us.
It may be that in a few years down the road, we don't need social workers. We need social workers now in order to advance the educational success of our students. I think that we have an obligation to fund those positions. I mean, we're not projecting those costs about 10 years. We may not need them in 10 years, but we need them now. And the data seems to support that from what was presented by Frank.
I would add to that, I don't think we not only need them now, I think we're gonna need them forever. trending out there in society, and it's result of that in the school board, because we're gonna need that kind of service. And if we don't get it this year, we're gonna be in worse shape next week, probably need it more. It's my 2 cents on it.
Frankly, I think there's a number of things we probably needed forever. I do think it does not serve the district's long-term interest to continue to provide an area of services that, in my opinion, are beyond the scope of what we should be providing.
I don't disagree with that.
I believe it sets us up for an expectation. I believe that, at least in community towns, small towns like Pembroke, it paints us as the bad guy when it comes to, what percentage of our property taxes is school. People don't truly understand the level of social services that we're offering that's above and beyond the school day. And quite frankly, to me, that's a social service issue. And if those are needed and it's outside the school day, then we want to make the case. Let's convince the selectmen that they should increase their social services offerings from the town. We have a welfare coordinator that's one person part-time. I mean, the town doesn't really offer anything, and again, I understand the need. I just don't think it's always 100% school board's responsibility.
Who pays for the resource officer? Does that come out of the town budget, or does that come out, that comes out of our budget? And that comes out of our budget because it is identified as a need. That is not that's not direct instructional need, but it is a need to ensure that direct instruction takes place. In much the same way, we are now placed in the 21st century in a position where, in order for instruction, best instruction to take place, we have to provide social work. The town is not providing the police officer for the school resource officer. The town's not going to provide social workers, even though we need them for the school to function properly.
Just again, I respectfully offer an alternative opinion. I do remember the conversation, and there was some thought around the town actually paying the resource officer. The concern at the time was this board was that if the resource officer was solely being compensated by the town, then the town would use that, or the police department would use that person at the police department's discretion, which would
Which they do
now.
But that was a concern of the board at the time, where there was a feeling like if we were funding that position, ultimately it didn't. So frankly, ultimately, if it didn't make any difference, we should have let the police department just make the case and have them pay for it. But part of that decision wasn't necessarily it really was, I know for a fact, I remember the conversation, it did involve feeling like we have a little more commitment of that person being here if we were paying for that person. It didn't end up manifesting itself, so I suggest at this point, it would probably be better off just having this department goals if we're going to do what we do anyway.
So the officer's not here 24 hours?
He's here at the
24.
He's here at the discretion of the police department.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, in reality, I mean, but they already said they're struggling.
Okay.
They're struggling for staffing, so if they have a need outside of here that's more pressing, then they're gonna pull it off, so.
I don't disagree with what you said about providing services that aren't normally associated with educational objectives. But more and more today, particularly in this state, where the town is never going to provide that service. The state should be doing a lot more, but isn't, because they don't have the money to fund the kind of mental health services and social services that families need, which is why schools have taken up the slack. Schools have always taken up the slack about what's missing out there in society. And this is just another occasion where schools have to do it because nobody else is stepping up to do it. Nobody else will step up. that's the unfortunate situation. It'd be nice if we could just do, the reading, writing, and arithmetic and leave it at that. But we can't do it anymore, not 2018 or 2020 or wherever we're gonna hit down the road, because there's more and more problems out there that kids are dragging into schools, and there's no one in school to deal with it. And there's no one outside school to deal with it. It's, you can back me up on this, Paul, trying to get services for kids and families who are in crisis is virtually impossible. Virtually impossible, particularly in this state where everything is done at a minimum, and that ain't gonna change in a while.
What concerns me though, when people talk about today, I see the change so people are painting a picture that today's worse than what it's been for a while. So I graduated from this school in 1986. I can tell you, our dropout rate back when I was a student here was substantially higher than what it is today. Without social workers, without this level of resources, these folks have been able to, there is a period of time, I don't know whether it was this year or frankly, I can't remember what it was last year, they're bringing a dropout rate down to almost zero. So I would suggest that maybe things, not everything is getting worse the way it's being portrayed, nor was it always better back decades ago. We've made commitments. So if you look at, what's how do we measure success? At least one of the indicators for me is obviously a level of student achievement, what percentage of students have postgraduate plans. Another is dropout rate. And frankly, I think we're doing a pretty good job.
The dropout rate is a lot better. That has a lot to do with more alternatives being available to kids to go in different directions to get diplomas, other than the normal diploma that was available when you graduated or when I worked.
And I couldn't have been more supportive and continue to be sort of a space.
That is one of the areas that schools and educational systems have stepped up to give more opportunities for kids to finish their education in alternative ways. And that's a good thing. But I can tell you, when I left here in 2008, there was a need for social workers then. Absolutely. We could have used that kind of support. And I don't doubt that it's not any better now. So,
Again,
I wish
pleasure on the board, I'm just.
I wish we didn't have to have this discussion. It'd be nice if we didn't have to think about this, but I think it's something that is a real problem and a real concern that nobody else is addressing. So you know what? The buck stops here.
Sure, go right ahead.
My concern especially is with our two elementary schools and the fact that we have one guidance counselor in each of those buildings. That's an awful lot of kids it virtually gives them no time to do any type of support outside of the crisis and putting out the fires every day, and the issues that they're dealing with are something that would be shocking, I think, to a lot of people at that early age. So, even if we're not going to go with two, I just want to go on record. I think the K both will share my concern that having one guidance counselor in each building is certainly not optimal.
Well, that's different than social work.
I think the reason that we went to social worker instead of guidance counselor is because the work is more social work. It's more working with the families and dealing with the, like Pat said, it's about helping these kids be ready to learn. And unfortunately, it's the social services that are going to do that because of the guidance that we're into school.
Well, I'm gonna ask our educational professionals, probably what is usually not a good question. If you had to give something up in order to get your social workers, is that something you'd be willing to do?
Turn off the heat. Really?
How attached
But
is
yeah,
that tractor?
there's not much left. I gave up one of the tractors, I gave up a bus.
Door number one, door number two.
No, but it's a hard question.
It's a fair question, I suppose. If I had my way, I'd have another guidance counselor, I'd have two guidance counselors. As opposed to social work, I mean, we put a title on it, I don't know that, from our standpoint, it's matters that much.
It's the amount of, things that we're dealing with, and I agree, Tom, I don't know if it's changed, you know, I was around when you were around. I think some of the differences are lack of help for students. There's not a lot of support for kids out there, never mind families. I can see a position, just speaking for my school, of having another guidance counselor, but also they don't reach out to the community. So is that, I hate to use the word, but it's busy. I mean, it's pretty crazy the amount of services trying to be provided within the school day, and you just don't have enough time. So when I give something up, it's really hard to give something up with something we don't have. You know, because we've always lived like this, we've always, so, you know, I would not be able to give something up. I couldn't do it.
You said it very well.
Tom, the reality is that students aren't able to learn because of issues at home. They come to school with that baggage, and especially at the younger grades, those are the kids that are going to exhibit behavioral manifestations in the classroom. Teacher has to redirect from direct instruction to a classroom full of kids to a child who maybe, you know, didn't get breakfast because there is no breakfast, or had to listen to mom fight with the electric company. I mean, these are things that our kids are facing, and that stands in the way not only of their own education, but it impacts the education of everybody else in that classroom. And that's where a social worker can help out. And it's when you amateurize out that help to all of the kids in that classroom, it's cost effective.
I appreciate the sentiment, frankly, I disagree. I do think words matter. You know, I've historically been supportive of very supportive of PACE, supportive of all these educational initiatives we've partaken in the last 20 years, and continue to be supportive. I get concerned when we try to reach too far, and then there are just as two guidance counselors, maybe with a different, maybe an extended scope. I probably would have looked at that as very consistent with the services that we offer. But it's interesting, when Pat, you were talking about, you know, what's happening at home, I remember our former headmaster, Mr. Ritter, saying, you know, the best thing we could do, on this big an issue today, to help kids learn better, is to make sure mom and dad are working. You know, in his opinion, and he shared that with the board, it's like it's very hard to educate parents or educate students whose parents aren't working, and that sentiment this year in the economy is very different than it is today. I would certainly never be supportive of make work jobs for parents just because that would increase the success of the kids. I'll be supportive of, you know, PACE or frankly, co-corrects. I'm incredibly supportive of co-corrects because of what they offer our kids before and after school. The activities over the summer, if you're heavily involved in co-corrects, frankly, you get a couple of weeks off after school ends in June before certain co-corrects pick up speed. I mean, we're Pembroke Academy, in my opinion, is essentially a year-round operation right now, so we're providing a tremendous level of service. I just think there has to be a limit.
Just so, we talked long and hard about what a position like a social worker would look like, and we actually discussed, is it a social worker that works? You know, and I think when this originally was talked about, we're talking about how do we add a position to the district that originally started as K-12. And, you know, I think we all agree that K-12 would be,
Well, it would be ineffective, right?
it wouldn't be effective. So, then when we started talking, and I spoke to our first thing that's why I go back to splitting our school and having two counselors is be the ultimate. But if you have to share, then you have to come up with a different playbook, a different role, we have to assign that person different caseload. They wouldn't just be, walking around. So that's where that came from. This is a little background, I think.
Is it National that actually hired a life coach? I believe that's what they were. There's now one of the, I think it was Grant one did for years. Are there any, is there any research out there that has documented demonstrable success of this type of service offered?
I know we have this around town that have for years, and it's relatively successful.
If you feel like it has a different connotation, I think it's all about kids, and if it's a guidance counselor that's just gonna reach out to the family, then call the guidance counselor. It's like, we don't have the job, we don't have the job description for a social worker, and I think they're gonna work in and help the guidance counselor.
Well, frankly, I agree with you, it's fine. But in terms of success, again, this was discussed, I think, a couple years ago. This is an original thought for the district. There was a lot of feedback when it was discussed, and I don't know, it could have been 20 years ago, but I don't remember. But we got concerns from people in town in terms of, I don't want you in my business. I'll send my kids to you, but I don't want you in my business. We can't get an adequate number of families to fill out the free and reduced lunch paperwork. So again, I have no problem investing in programs with sort of a demonstrated return, but what it would do for the district if we had 100% compliance financially, and what we could do with those funds to get everyone to fill out that paperwork. And to think that if we hire social workers, there's going to be some sort of across-the-board acceptance of this level of service. What if we hire them and 99% of people say, get out of my face?
So
It may be
save
people
1%.
getting out of your face, but the kids
What's that?
don't get out of
Save
your
1%.
100% of people say, get out of my face.
the kids, whether or not the parents want to be part of it, we still see kids day to day, and with one guidance counselor, it's like, okay, who is more crisis than the other? If you're going back to class, because I can only do one thing at a time.
Again, I'm not arguing the need for guidance counselors, the number of guidance counselors. I'm talking about what I perceive to be a role that we spending a significant amount of time outside of school. Helping parents.
And we really have talked about that component of it, and how I think that's why I said, because it is a rabbit hole, and I personally would rather have another guidance counselor, and I realize that is not going to be on the table, but I think that person could reach out, because that's what guidance counselors do. They do reach out with families and support families in the different settings.
Well, why would a guidance counselor be on the table? I mean, my standpoint, if they're doing the same thing, they want to change the name.
It's really hard to do part-time.
I don't care.
Call it anything you want.
Call it anything you want, as long as you get the support services that are needed. Call it the class clown, I don't care.
How would you do that?
Maybe if we had stronger parameters or description on what work considers, because, I understand the concept of social work, because the idea of like potentially going out and with family in their homes, I don't think that's the vision that we see happening. In one case of a child who has been transferred into our school, the amount of dialogue that needs to happen with parents who aren't available, and you have to work with outside agencies, foster care parents. They don't even have the sending school. We don't have paperwork because the state's not doing their part to give us all of that information, and yet the student is showing up on our doorstep. All of that takes 3 days. Well, the guidance counselor, that's 3 days gone. They're not in the classroom, and I think some of this is reactive versus responsive. Like, we can do all this reactive work, and we have to do the reactive work, but then for all the other students, we're not doing our social emotional curriculum potentially. We're not having groups of students come and learn how to cooperate or be assertive or deal with transgender issues or whatever might be on our table because crisis is too big. And so I am not for someone going out into homes because I think that could be 1 or 2 or 3 families that we're done. That's that one person that we hired. I think it's more of what can be done in the school for the students in school. And I just think maybe we need to be more clear about what that description.
For me, that's very different than
Social work.
the initial.
I think
I
when
work
we-
with a social work department. I understand what classical social workers do for a living, how they're educated. That's
I
very
don't
different.
I don't think that's our vision.
And if I have that perception,
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. It wasn't, I don't think, any of the 4 of ours perception. I think what Susie was describing is what we were envisioning. We weren't envisioning people going out in the community and working in 2 or 3 families. It wasn't the
I mean, having
vision
said
that we
that,
had.
I think a part-time counselor is also hard. And that's, I mean, it's, wait, no, your person isn't here today. I think that becomes pretty tough. As I said, shit happens, something, we figure it out, but it's really hard to, like, somebody gets 6th grade, but they're only there 2 days a week. It's gonna fall to another counselor automatically, so what happens? It's not a great spot, to be honest with you.
So do we want to give it back to these folks to better write that out, describe it, put a name to it, and come back to us with it? Guidance counselor. Or people just want to go that route.
There's no title with higher value than that in the world.
Well, that's what I've heard. Yeah, I think that's great.
No state representative.
Would you be more comfortable with that? I mean, you guys still not support it, but.
Again, I don't want it to be semantics, as it is traditional, and I was supportive of, I've historically been supportive of, programs and services that we offer within these walls of control. I think there's a return on investment. I get concerned if we're at all inclined that we're gonna try to have more influence outside of these walls, and I think we should. I mean, I understand there may be a difference of opinion, and I get really concerned about that return on investment. Frankly, I'd rather add more full bricks and more reasons for kids to get excited to be here.
I promise you, the
Go
last
ahead.
thing I say. My little high school, 350 students, we have a full-time social worker. One of the programs that the social worker offers is she meets with, I think, 2 or 3 different groups of kids who come from alcoholic families. And she meets with them during their study time, during their, what we call RAM time, where kids are, sitting in the study hall. They meet with her. She is the social worker. And she can give them insights and ideas that are slightly different than what our kids would go to the guidance counselor for. Because of the increased number of our students who have parents who have stage 3, stage 4 cancer, she is starting a group for kids who have parents with cancer. So it's not only the kids who are, who come from dysfunctional families, but also kids who are in crisis. And she's able to run these groups during school time for our kids so that they have somebody that they can go to, they can get peer support. So that's one of the many ways that the social worker is used at my school.
Which is great. I am familiar with groups that offer all of those services. for support groups, a number of which are sponsored by Current Hospital. So it's great that they were offered, and I would understand that in a smaller community, next to this, with the proximity. Quite frankly, maybe it's not as much as we have, but if one thing I learned through, what we went through recently is, there are a phenomenal number of programs and resources out there, and I'm not even sure if people understand how to use the other today. But virtually everything you mentioned in 100 other issues.
All right, here's what I'm gonna do. Ready to support for taking these out of this budget?
Well, as far as today,
That's where we're at the moment. We need to come to some consensus on this budget.
until I get a better sense, or if there's commitment today. Again, I'm just one person, just expressing my opinion. So, and I have always represented the sentiment of the board. I do that.
Yeah, I would be willing to, have them removed until such a time that there's a definition what the position would be. You're all right, Michelle.
Did it agree with it?
Yeah, I'm good, no, I'm good.
You know where it is, Pat?
Keep it where it is.
I go with people who are in as well, so. But now I can shall say. Doesn't, right up in the, bottom line, but, how do people feel about where this budget is at? I guess, we need to come to some sense of,
I can tell you overall, this budget right here, I'd be very comfortable taking this budget as you see it today.
do what? Okay.
That's what I,
Gene? Yeah?
Yeah.
Pat?
I think it's very lean.
I have absolutely no problem with budget the way it is. If you guys can do a little bit of work on your end, so we can at least have a good definition of what this is, if this does end up staying in this budget. Well,
I think
you have to speak to it.
I do think it's important to, we have talked about that exact issue, Tom, we were talking about. We have the same concern. Just so everybody knows, because we want to be very careful if something like this happens, that we have a very clear understanding of what the need is, not to have something that we don't want.
But the flip side, if we're gonna sell this, then we also need to be clear that there is no other greater need. There's no need for 2 more classroom teachers, there's no need for anyone else. This is, again, adding positions after what we've been through. This has to be sold as like, this is the greatest need of the district.
So does it make sense to bring this bachelor out for a brief explanation as to why some of these may be needed? For the budget committee, for kind of what I'm thinking.
I don't know that he does intervention and prevention.
Well, I'm thinking the youth risk survey
Yeah.
results come to mind.
That's for
Kind of-
high school, but I mean,
Well,
we're
it's high
talking
school.
four, 4 different
Don't we
buildings.
can create something for you that would give a better,
yeah, you
clearer
guys,
definition?
I don't think coming from us, it's gonna have the same impact as if it's coming from you folks or people that work for you.
Well, part of the stuff that we're dealing with is confidential. So
Understood.
that's part of this issue.
And that's why you speak to issues, not people.
But yeah, but to speak to it broadly, we deal with
Yeah,
whatever you folks deal with on a daily basis.
yeah.
Well, and quite frankly, I think if you want, I think what would help your argument is, again, I know we take advantage of a number of outside resources. And I understand that probably takes a fair bit of coordination, but to make sure people are aware of, in order to take advantage of all these other resources, we need that coordination help. And it's not necessarily us doing it, it's us sort of pointing the way, giving direction. Because again, to me, that communicates that we're not asking for resources to be the be-all end-all. We're asking for resources to help people get the help they need. many of which services may be provided by us owners.
And that's what a good gun is for.
Yeah, well, and frankly, in the working world, it's referred to as employee assistance.
Right.
Which, quite frankly, you wanna talk about something that I would have loved to see in the budget last 20 years. Contracted employee assistance for all staff. I think that would have paid for itself several times over the years.
We're gonna move on. Everyone good? I need a motion to authorize the money to be withdrawn from the trust fund for jobs traffic. Any other questions about that? All in favor? Opposed? Yeah, okay. No. You're good. I just need to tell.
He'll be shoveling.
Policy review?
Oh, do you wanna talk about anything further with those, warrant articles? You know, maybe things out of the budget, or do you want us to just, draft? Articles for next time? My concern is you have one more meeting on December 4th, which is a week, and then it's February's budget.
I had a couple of personnel questions over saving for,
Non-public?
Yeah.
Okay,
so we can discuss that after.
that's fine. Decide we can present this thing?
Are you deciding or are you looking at it?
I'm looking at anybody that wants to jump at it.
Actually, I've been thinking about that, so we can talk offline.
Talk about, okay. Yeah, Dave knows that is coming up pretty quick, so. That conversation. Okay, you good?
Okay.
We'll hold off on those till a little bit later.
Yep.
Agenda item 5, policy review.
We've moved them to the third reading, because we haven't had a lot of discussion about them, I don't know if there are questions.
Can we get past budget before we do the meeting?
Sure.
Is that,
I'll
they
just
just
keep
want to
them on the
come forward?
agenda, yeah.
There's nothing pressing on it.
No.
I think until we pass budget, that might be. Information, you have one?
Yes, we have the meeting on December 4th. And then we have another meeting on December 18th, which is a couple of nights before, the MDC gets the budget. We have a tabletop exercise scheduled, but it was the only night that Jenny could coordinate that. I think she mentioned to you that we're doing active shooter drills here on campus. We have a tentative date of June 20th. We have tabletop exercises, with a bus, stakeholders, and that is scheduled for December 18th. So I'm hoping to either move that meeting, or do we need the meeting if we get done next week with the budget?
Which meeting are you looking to move?
The 18th, if we could move it to the 17th. We need everyone to be at the meeting.
The 17th is obviously Monday.
The Monday.
I did, right?
I have a conflict. Third Monday, Monday. You can avoid those, I don't care.
There's a lot of other stuff, on the schedule for all of us, unfortunately.
Right.
17.
I missed last one, so.
No, I think I'm okay on Monday, the second Monday.
Yeah.
I would just respectfully request the superintendent of tax and law. I would respectfully request the superintendent.
She's still not hearing you.
Before 8 o'clock.
If everyone else is good with Monday the 17th, I'll make this work.
So we're changing the 18th to the 17th.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do we need?
That Thursday.
20.
Hopefully we won't have budget changes on the 17th.
Yeah. My current feeling is I think we're going to be okay, but we'll see.
We need to get everything done next week, or have a meeting or somewhere.
All right.
Okay, I'll let
Good
Jenny
with that?
know we're all good to go on the 18th. Thank you very much.
Agenda item 7, public comment. Any members of the public have any comments? No? Good, okay. With that, we're going to non-public session under New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, semicolon 2, A and C, and roll call vote. Gene?
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Tom? Yes. We will probably be coming out and doing a little bit of work after non-public session.
You will.
I think that was general pleasure of the board. Maybe a couple more budget things you want to talk about? Okay, so we'll be doing a little bit of work. You want to say anything, guys?
We will need someone to turn the camera on and off, so.
Okay.
Sorry. Good evening.
Make them all stay.
Get a motion to submit, non-public session. All in favor?
So I'll make a motion to approve this sabbatical.
Motion to approve sabbatical leave. Tom, Dave? Questions, concerns, comments regarding sabbatical leave? All those in favor of approving sabbatical leave?
Aye.
All those opposed? Approval.
Most of that. Sorry.
I'll make that motion.
Wait.
You can change
You want to change your vote, Jane?
They.
All in opposition?
All no.
All no.
All no on sabbatical leave.
Unanimous.
Got it.
Okay.
I'll make that motion to approve the,
Second, Dave? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second,
All in favor?
third. I was down in Salem today, and they have a media program. They do their school board,
You can shut it off right there.
like literally a small auditorium. Square table,